Am I the asshole for not agreeing to house my pregnant teenage sister and her delinquent boyfriend after our parents disowned her? My family and I grew up poor. From when I was old enough to legally work, I, 19 female, have had to take on multiple jobs while balancing school to help with my family and my younger sister. Growing up, I never had a lot, and whatever money I earned, I would spend on my sister, 16 female, and my family. When I was 18 and had just been accepted into college, my dad's business that he'd worked on for the past couple of years finally took off. This also meant that my sister could now have a normal high school experience without worrying about money. While I was in college, I wasn't in contact with my sister that much since I was so busy with schoolwork. However, from our calls and her social media, I could tell she had changed completely and was involved with some bad people. She would post videos on her Snapchat of her getting drunk, smoking weed, dueling, driving while most likely high and drunk, etc. I tried reaching out to her, but she would mostly deny the claims and told me to mind my own business. At some point, she justified her actions by using the argument, "This is what the cool kids do now. Not everyone was a nerd like you in high school." One of my high school friends, who also has a brother in the same grade, reached out to me and said that she heard that my sister was seeing a sketchy guy from another school. Apparently he sells drugs and was expelled from my sister's high school. I asked my sister about this and she denied it. Last week, I got a phone call from my mum who was sobbing. She tells me that my sister is pregnant. I was so shocked that I could not speak. Then I was angry. When I was her age and even younger, I gave her everything, and so did my parents, so she could have all the opportunities that her peers had. Since my dad's business became lucrative, they've given her every opportunity to succeed. Any extracurricular or sport she wants, academic tutoring, school activities, etc. I never got any of those things. It angered me so much that she took all of this for granted and effed up her life. The father? Her delinquent boyfriend, who got expelled and sells drugs. She blows up my phone, but I don't respond. She then sends a series of long text messages asking if she can crash at my place. She also asked me if I could make her an appointment to see a doctor. Lastly, she asked if it would be okay if her boyfriend comes and stays over sometimes. I shut her down. I told her that you dug this hole for yourself. If you allowed yourself to become pregnant, then you should be able to deal with the consequences. Also, I'm currently sharing a small apartment with 2 roommates. She begged some more, and I denied her. In the past few days, she's been texting me and calling me non-stop, saying that she has nowhere to go and has been living in her boyfriend's car. I haven't responded to a single message of hers, but I feel my resolve wavering a bit. I don't fully support her, but maybe I'm being an asshole. Edit: to clarify, I would still never house her in my apartment. That would be extremely disrespectful towards my roommates and would get me kicked out due to the lease agreement. I meant I was considering giving in and sending her some money. Edit 2: my parents have disowned her, not kicked her out. They are refusing to acknowledge that she is their daughter, but she is still welcome to live in their house. She chose not to since my parents are absolutely fuming and probably will yell at her and criticize her, which she honestly needs. Deleted says, "Not the asshole. It hurts to watch families suffer consequences of their actions, but you aren't refraining from helping to be vindictive or to get even. You aren't helping her because the way that she's treated you and your family. It's hard to do, but you are not the asshole." OP replies, "Honestly, I think this is an important lesson that she needs to learn. Actions have consequences, and you need to learn to deal with them like an adult." Thane says, "Not the asshole. Not just that, but you absolutely should not ride the roller coaster that she's chosen for herself. You say it all in your post. She has had every advantage, first from your hard work, then from your dad's hard work, and she chose to F it up. What's more, drugs are involved, and you never want to get involved with people who are druggies, let alone let them into your apartment. They'll steal you blind. This is her problem to solve. She can move back in with your folks, she has choices, she won't be on the street. But even if she was on the street, that's not your problem. If you're worried about the baby, and she's still being irresponsible, then that's for CPS to deal with. There are so many reasons for you to stand firm. 1. She built this, she has to deal with it. 2. She needs to learn that actions have consequences. And 3. Helping her is not only enabling her bad behavior, it is also enabling drug use with her and her boyfriend. Again, enabling equals prolonging. The best way you can help is to cut her off. But this doesn't count the most important reason of all. You have earned your decent life. You've worked hard, you've helped your family, you've helped your wretched, spoiled sister, now you get to live your life. You get to put reasonable boundaries around your life. And that's what this is, a reasonable boundary, and not ruin your own life by being dragged into someone else's mire. I know it's hard because you've spent so much of your life being so generous and so giving, but honestly, OP, it's your turn to think of yourself and what you deserve. And you deserve to live a good life. Bit of a doom and gloom there by those guys, but I agree with the message. You can be there to support her morally, through text, however you'd like. Yes, it's a bit of a tricky situation because she's 16, but she always has the option to go back to your parents, and I do believe that she's going to use it. Yes, she's an idiot, but she's looking to you to extend her idiocy. How long can she hold out, knowing that she is always welcome back home at her parents' house, she always has a support system available to her? Who knows? But you're not an asshole for not sinking your life and where you are currently to enable her drug-taking tendencies and this delusion that she has going on. You are very much justified for having healthy boundaries and making other people respect those boundaries by enforcing them. Keep doing what you're doing, keep supporting her morally and emotionally like you have, but do not support her financially. It's not a good idea. And now on to the updates. So it's been a little bit more than 2 weeks since my first post, and I guess it's safe to say now that the situation has been resolved in probably the best way possible. In my last post, I stated that my sister was still living in the car of her delinquent boyfriend who sells drugs and refusing to come home because my parents had disowned her. At this point, I would like to clarify that my family and I are Chinese, and it's common in Chinese culture to disown your kids when they do something that largely disappoints or embarrasses you. However, this is not a permanent disownment like many of you have brought up. As long as my sister apologizes sincerely and they can see that she's actively trying to fix her mistake and become better, they will take her back as their daughter. Another clarification would be for those people who assumed that my dad kept us poor since he was stubborn and wanted to work on his business and not get a real job. His business was a passion project on the side. My dad was working 50 hours a week at 2 jobs. Alrighty, on to what ultimately happened with my sister. Despite the chain of advice I sent her, she ignored me still. I regularly checked in with her over the next week to see how she was, and she gave me one-word replies until they ultimately stopped. I was growing concerned after she didn't pick up her cell, but then I received a call from my parents. According to my mum, my sister had returned home crying and begging for forgiveness. She had a serious talk with my parents where she apologized for her behavior and promised to make amends. My mum was very tearful as well. They scheduled a doctor's appointment for her immediately, and I believe she went in the next day. I had no idea what made her finally break and return home, so I texted her. First, I told her that I was proud of her for taking action and being mature, and asked if anything happened between her and her boyfriend. At first, she was pretty stubborn and kept insisting that she was just over living in a car, but after a while, she finally admitted that her boyfriend had requested that she start selling for him if she wanted to keep living in his car and eating his food that he was sneaking her. Lamau? What an effing asshole. Glad my sister finally returned to her senses. She told me she broke it off with him, and I sincerely hope that's the truth. This past Monday, she got the pills to successfully terminate her pregnancy. According to my mum, she was begging that they do it ASAP, which was really a breath of relief for all of us because we were worried she might want to keep it. The future seems pretty bright right now for her. My parents decided to pull her out of the public school and send her to a progressive private school that some of my close friends also went to. It's a fantastic school, and I think it'd be great for her. She's officially starting next Monday. I'm gonna go visit her and my family this weekend and see how she is doing. Edits. Forgot to add that the new school also has a wonderful counseling department. I urged my parents to speak to the head psychologist there, and they did, and she'll be having mandatory weekly meetings with her and another therapist at the school. Dunkler Schmetterling says, I'm glad to hear that everything worked out. I wish you and your family the best. OP says, thank you. The future is definitely looking up for my sister. Veast replies, also, I'm glad that it wasn't a true disownment that your parents were doing. It would have been a bad thing had she stayed with the dude, and I guess she got the reality check when he asked her to start selling. Sometimes people need to see for themselves what you try to protect them from for them to understand. Hungry Druid says, very glad you clarified to selling drugs. That worried me a bit about what he was pressuring her to do. Glad that she's home safe, and good that you two were talking again. I 100% expected to see that the boyfriend wanted her to prostitute herself. My heart stopped for a second. Me too. I did think that it was going that way, and I'm glad that it didn't, because that would be an absolute nightmare. Thank God that it ended the way that it did, and we're not in Nightmare Town. Jesus Christ. Situations like this could go either way though. You never know. When they start getting into drugs, you might have lost them entirely until they hit rock bottom and they decide to come back up. But when that happens, they will be an entirely changed person, and it's a very sad thing to see. So I'm very much glad that that did not happen to OP's sister here. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Our next post is by user Lace4151, and it's titled, Am I the asshole here for laughing when she suggested my husband groomed me? I, 30, have been with my husband, 40, for 6 years, and we've been married for 2. Recently, we got a new co-worker, let's call her Sarah, who seems really keen on helping others. During lunch one day, Sarah and I were talking about relationships, and she asked about my marriage. I told her how long we've been together, and she got this serious look on her face. She said something like, you know, that age difference is a bit concerning. Are you sure that he didn't groom you? I was completely caught off guard. My husband and I have a perfectly healthy relationship, and honestly, I intentionally sought out someone older because I like the stability and experience that comes with it. The idea of him grooming me just seemed so absurd that I couldn't help it. I burst out laughing. I didn't intend to be rude, but it was just so ridiculous to me. Sarah mumbled something that I didn't care to hear and left the conversation soon after. I thought it was over, but later I found out that she's been talking behind my back, telling the other co-workers that I was rude for laughing at her and that she was just trying to help. But what really got me was that she's been telling people to avoid my creepy husband at an upcoming work party as if he's some kind of predator. Now I'm starting to feel a bit guilty for how I reacted, but also kind of furious that she's bad-mouthing my husband, who she's never even met. So am I the asshole here for laughing when she suggested that my husband groomed me? Pimp says, you should complain to HR about her accusations and slander against your husband. OP says, it's really the calling him creepy that makes me upset. I'm her boss, so I could fire her myself if I wanted, but I know that that would look like I'm just being petty. Tall Outside replies, I think you're being way too nonchalant about all of this. If you have an HR department worth a shit, her behavior will warrant being written up and spoken with at the very least. If your HR department is weak, take matters into your own hands. Call her into your office and say, Sarah, the other day, without any evidence whatsoever, you implied that my husband had groomed me like he was some sort of a sexual predator. I laughed at the time because it was a ridiculous notion and a ridiculous thing to say to me, but I want to be clear here. My personal life is none of your business, and it's inappropriate for you to give your unwanted opinions on it to me. Likewise, if I hear from anyone else that you were talking about my personal life to our colleagues at work, I will fire you. Now, who have you told that my husband was creepy? Let's get the air cleared right now. And then you bring all the people whom she told that into your office, and you make it clear to everyone involved that this is the kind of toxic rumor mongering that destroys a healthy work environment. Lay down your expectations for professional behavior. Don't just continue to shrug this one off or second guess yourself because you burst out laughing from something outrageous that Sarah said to you. I like that. That's a good idea. That's why I included that comment. That go off, queen. Pop that shit off. She deserves it. Get everyone in there. Take her to the cleaners. Drag her ass. She needs to be made an example of, all right? We're bringing corporal punishment back. This is verbal lashings. We may not be able to cane people anymore physically, but we can verbally lash them for their toxic behavior. And she deserves it. She absolutely deserves to be dragged like that because she is creating a toxic environment under the guise of, oh, well, I'm just helping them out by starting a little bit of gossip. Not on my watch, Sarah, you little filthy rascal. You're not getting away with that. Not the arsehole OP. And now on to the updates. Hey everyone, here is an update on what happened. After my last post, things got worse with Sarah. She wouldn't stop making comments about my relationship, always bringing up how concerning the age difference was, or making vague comments about grooming and power dynamics. At first, people politely listened, but after a while, she repeated it so often that people started to get annoyed. Even those who didn't know the full story could tell that she was going overboard. As basically everyone suggested, I decided to email HR to address the situation, but I made it clear that I didn't want to get her into trouble, just wanted to resolve things and move on. HR was, well, HR, and they begrudgingly set up an informal meeting with both of us present. During the meeting, I explained how her comments were bothering me and that I felt they were inappropriate. Sarah's defense was odd. She started by saying that she was just looking out for me and couldn't stand by and watch something bad happen, but then she got defensive, saying things like, "You just don't know what it's like to be manipulated," and "I've seen situations like this go bad." She was basically implying that she was some kind of expert on relationships like mine without actually knowing anything about it. At first, I thought maybe she had experienced something like this and felt some sympathy, but honestly, I hate making assumptions about people's past, and due to her constant talking, I assumed it would have came out if it was actually the case. At that point, I asked her, "Sarah, how old do you think I am?" She looked a bit flustered and hesitated before saying, like 24, 25? Which made no sense because I clearly look my age. I had to hold back my laughter again. When I told her I was 30, her face turned bright red and she didn't know what to say. The room got pretty awkward after that. HR stepped in and gently reminded Sarah that while it's okay to care about co-workers, constantly making unsolicited comments and spreading rumors wasn't appropriate. Sarah didn't say much after that and seemed pretty uncomfortable. She apologized, though it felt half-hearted. Since the meeting, she's stopped making comments about my husband, but things between us have been pretty awkward. At least the issue is resolved, and I'm happy that HR handled it without escalating things further. iPoopoo69 says, "Are you sure you're not getting groomed though? Like really sure? Like really, really sure?" And OP says, "Only mildly sure now. Who knows? As a 24-year-old, I was a child." Labiris says, "That one study that didn't actually examine any person older than 25 did say that brain development is still in progress until 25 years old. That means dating a 24-year-old is basically cradle robbing." Unlucky Country replies, "I knew this was all about the brain development thingy. Kids nowadays will scream, 'I'm over 18, I'm an adult,' but will pull the 'I'm under 25 card when you want accountability from them." And Bunch of Malarkey says, "It's one thing to express concern directly to an individual, it's a whole ass other thing to use your concern as an excuse to gossip about other people's business. It's amazing that she went this far without even knowing your age. Sounds like you handled it with grace. Good job, and I hope she learned a lesson." And I hope that she learned a lesson too, because, it's just not cool to do that. The hell are you doing, Sarah? Is she actually trying to get fired? Spreading gossip about your boss is going to get you fired. She has power over you. What are you doing? Glad that it got resolved this way though, and HR actually did something about it, though I won't hold my breath that Sarah is going to change her behavior. If it's not going to be you as the next victim, someone else in that office definitely is, and let's hope that Sarah is an ex-co-worker at some point. Thank you for sharing your story with us, OP, but what did you guys think of this one? Let me know in the comments down below. Am I the asshole here for tricking my sister-in-law into stealing our baby name? So I, 33 female, have been married to my husband Kevin, 35 male, for 5 years. We have a 3-year-old daughter, and I'm currently pregnant with twins, male and female. My brother-in-law Terrence, 38 male, has been married to his wife Jess, 39 female, for 7 years. Jess and I are total opposites. Jess is an extrovert. She's kind of loud, boisterous, and some would even say abrasive. I'm an introvert. I'm not quiet or shy, but I am reserved. I'm also very observant. The first time I met Jess, I told Kevin that we would be like oil and water. We've never been overly hostile towards each other, but also have never gone out of our way to bond. Unfortunately, Terrence and Jess had fertility issues for several years before finally having their son a couple of weeks ago. Prior to this, Jess was very odd towards us when I was pregnant with our daughter. The best way to describe it is hot and cold. One minute, she pretended like she didn't care while we were talking about it at family gatherings. The next, she was volunteering to throw the baby shower. I gave a firm no to that. We both assumed the behavior was because of their fertility issues and didn't think too much of it. But the strangest thing she did was almost demand to know what we were naming our daughter before we announced it. She asked us constantly after our gender reveal and got visibly annoyed when we just laughed her off and said that it was a secret. We couldn't understand why the hell she cared so much, as she was not expecting it this time. Regardless, we didn't share the name with anyone. When our daughter was born and her name was finally announced, Jess was kind of obsessed with it. I don't know how to explain it. She just kept going on and on about how beautiful and unique it was. To this day, she comments about how different it is. The name we chose is a pretty common Welsh name, which wouldn't be all that different except for the fact that we are African American. I've always gravitated towards names from different regions, and found and fell in love with the name years ago, and never shared it with anyone prior to Kevin. Fast forward to both of us being pregnant at the same time, Jess's odd behavior continued towards me, but this time it was more blatant. Snarky comments under the guise of jokes about how big I was going to get with 2 babies, and that my body would never snap back like it did after our daughter. She even accused us of getting pregnant on purpose after she announced her own pregnancy, even though the whole family knew that we were actively trying, and at the time of her announcement, I was already a few weeks along and didn't know. One thing about me, introvert or not, is that I'm no pushover and will stand up for myself. But I chose to ignore Jess because I knew that would get her more than confronting her would, since she seems to thrive off drama. Jess was obviously much further along than we are. However, we did have our gender reveal prior to Jess giving birth. And right on cue, the baby name interrogation started again. Because they decided not to find out the gender of their baby in advance, Jess kept hounding us both of the names that we'd already picked out. But again, we declined to answer. After days of this, I got annoyed and asked Kevin if he thought the reason for her insistence was so she could use the name first since she was due first. He kinda chuckled until he realized I was serious and said he didn't think so, but that anything was possible. So I said, let's test it. We were due to host my father-in-law's birthday at our house a couple of weeks later, and I decided to leave something in the unfinished nursery with a girl and boy name on it and see if Jess went snooping. Because Kevin thought it was silly, he said he would give me $20 if she did it. So I went onto some site where you can order custom name wall decals and put in the names Aria Rose and Sebastian Ali. These are names that we like, but aren't remotely close to what we chose. This will also be our last pregnancy, so even if Jess did use them, we wouldn't care. I didn't complete the order. I got to the final page and then printed it out and hid it in a dresser drawer in the nursery. The party goes off, but because we were busy hosting, we never noticed if Jess disappeared for any extended period of time. When I went into the nursery the next morning, nothing was out of place and the order sheet was still in the exact location. So we both just went, "Welp?" and forgot about it. I did, however, notice that Jess never asked us about the names again. Then Jess gives birth. We went to the hospital to give our congrats. When we go in and see the baby, I asked what his name was, and man, I cannot properly explain the shit-eating grin that came over Jess's face as she says, Sebastian Ali. I mean, she was really proud of herself, and honestly, it is the most vindictive I have ever seen her look in the years I've known her. But instead of reacting how she was expecting, I put on a performance like I had graduated from Juilliard. Oh my god, that's such a great name. He's so cute. Aw, look at his little face. Oh, I just love him so much. Welcome to the world, Sebastian. Auntie's gonna spoil you rotten. I mean, I am laying it on thick without an ounce of bother. The range of emotions on Jess's face went from shock to confusion to rage in a span of maybe 17 seconds. Meanwhile, my husband is holding in the laughter of the century. We later say our goodbyes, and he gives me a 20 in the elevator while almost crying laughing. All I could say was, like I thought. This was 2 weeks ago, and we haven't seen them since because we wanted to give them time to settle in with a new baby. I've heard from my mother-in-law that Jess doesn't seem as thrilled about motherhood as she thought she would be, considering how long it took them to conceive, but said that it might just be baby blues. Obviously, I think she's just disappointed that her petty move didn't have the desired effect on us. I did share this with my sister, and while she laughed initially, she did say that it kind of was an asshole move. So, am I the asshole here? Teresa JS says, not the asshole. That's hilarious. Put sister-in-law on an information diet about anything having to do with your pregnancy and kids. Sister-in-law probably isn't done trying to cause drama. OP replies, I am more concerned about this now. Before her pregnancy, her and brother-in-law lived in another state for years. That's why it was so easy for me to ignore her. They moved back here in May, and it became harder to dodge her. Teresa replies, be ready for the questions about where you buy their clothes, what pediatrician you use, what extracurricular activities you're going to do, what daycare or preschool you use, etc. Avoid telling her details if you can. Proper Foundation says, not the asshole and well played. Jess got exactly what she deserved. HB Mart says, yeah, I think it's impossible to be an asshole towards certain people, and she's one of them. You just have to take them down however you can, because they're never going to stop making life difficult. Couldn't agree more with you there, and I think those that said you are a little bit of an asshole for doing that are just saying, well yeah, it was a dick move, but it's funny. So to me that says you're not an asshole for what you did, because she deserved it. Fighting fire with fire does not make you the asshole in this situation. I'm glad that no flying monkeys have come to attack you either in this situation, because we all know how that goes, and that is a draining experience to go through. Though I do wonder how she plans to retaliate, and how you'll respond to her when she does retaliate. We'll see who the asshole is after all that. And now on to the updates. Hey y'all, thanks for the responses to my original post. The comments were funnier than I was expecting, and kept me and my husband pretty entertained. I tried to respond to as many as I could before they got away from me. I've gotten some messages asking for an update, but nothing major has really happened. Jess didn't break into my house to push me down the steps and steal my kid, but I did get some additional information though that I can pass along. Before I get to that, I want to give a little bit of context about my relationship with Jess to explain why I did what I did. Feel free to skip past it. To put it plainly, Jess and I have been in a one-sided beef since the day that Kevin and I started dating. I give her zero thought if I don't have to, and yet I live rent-free in her mind. Based on snide comments that she's made over the years, the reason why is jealousy. Kevin and I dated for only a year before we got engaged. We then were married within 6 months of that engagement. We had an actual wedding with a ceremony and reception, went on a honeymoon, bought a house in the burbs, and got pregnant in rapid succession. Both of us have good careers and are financially stable. Mother-in-law, father-in-law, and grandmother-in-law all adore me. There is a churchy reason behind this that I will spare you on. Jess and Terrence did not have a similar path. They have been on and off since they were 19 and 20, with Terrence never really wanting to commit. During one of their breaks, Terrence got a friends with benefits pregnant and now has an 11-year-old son. This has always been a sore subject with Jess due to her fertility struggles with fibroids. When they finally got back together, she pressed him for marriage until he relented and gave her a shut-up ring. They went to the courthouse on a random Tuesday, then had dinner at Red Lobster afterwards, and went back to work the next day. Not trying to be shady, just relaying the facts. They now live in a 2-bedroom apartment in a high cost of living city while working hourly jobs. They aren't minimum wage or anything, but constantly need overtime to make ends meet. This had led her to resent me over the years. She thinks everything has come easily to me and has let that fester. There was a time a few years ago at a gathering where she got drunk and got into an argument with Terrence. I think her attitude that night stemmed from seeing me with my infant daughter. To hurt him, she blurted out that she married the wrong brother. Everyone was shocked. I wasn't. She just said the quiet part out loud and revealed what I already knew. So I poked her a bit and said, "Really? Which one? That's kinda gross since both were minors when you met them." Context, Kevin and Terrence also have a younger brother, Tim, 28. Boy, did she fly off the handle at that. To this day, she claims to have no memory of that night. Anyway, now I know there is a reason why she resents me. Now for the update. Like I said, nothing's really happened since I last posted. I haven't seen or even heard from Jess since that day in the hospital. Terrence also hasn't communicated much with Kevin other than sports talk. However, my mother-in-law has been with him almost every day. She came over yesterday to go over some last-minute things for our baby shower that we are having this Saturday after Halloween. I am not due till late January, but with the holidays and the twins tending to arrive early, we just wanted to get it out of the way. Anyway, after finalizing some things, I asked mother-in-law how Terrence and Jess were doing. She sighed and leaned back into her chair and said, "Girl, it's a mess." She goes on a long word vomit that I will have to summarize. Basically, they've been at it since before the baby was born. When they were discussing names, Jess's list only consisted of girl names. When Terrence asked what if it's a boy, Jess was adamant that it wouldn't be. But if it was, they would just use Terrence Jr. This caused an argument because Terrence's 11-year-old is not named after him, and it would be petty to name the second son Jr. Unbeknownst to me, Jess was having severe anxiety over not the name, but the gender of their baby. So much so that she refused to find out early because she was afraid of disappointment and she wanted to really enjoy her pregnancy believing that she was having a girl. She really wanted a girl. I mean, really wanted a girl. This goes back to mother-in-law in my opinion. Mother-in-law is the only girl of 4 brothers. She had 3 boys, and 2 of her 3 boys, Tim has a 6-year-old, have boys. Then my daughter came along. Mother-in-law actually broke down in tears at our gender reveal. Since the day she was born, mother-in-law has become a little obsessed with her. Not in a just no mother-in-law way. She knows and respects boundaries, but the whole family is aware that my daughter is my mother-in-law's favorite person in the world. I think Jess thought that by having a girl, she would get the same affection and attention from mother-in-law as she has never been Jess's biggest fan. When that didn't happen, something short-circuited in her head. Mother-in-law's words, not mine. Before we arrived at the hospital that day, they were still fighting over a name. So I guess when I showed up, she just blurted it out. While I still think that it was to hurt me, it seems like it was also because she didn't allow herself to think of anything else because she didn't want a boy. I said in the first post how I noticed her expression. However, I completely failed to notice Terrence's. He was pissed. Jess had never mentioned that name to him prior, and he had no clue where it even came from. He also hated it. He refused to sign off on that, and they left the hospital without a name. In our state, you only have 7 days from birth to register a name. She eventually told Terrence to pick the name himself and that she didn't care anymore. So he did. He swapped out Sebastian for Jordan, but kept Ali. Yes, after Michael and Muhammad. According to mother-in-law, since they've been home, Jess has shut down emotionally. She's been doing all of the motherly things, but there's a disconnect there. Mother-in-law said she finally broke down to her a few nights ago that she'll likely never have a daughter due to her age and what it took to get pregnant in the first place. I think that will bring them closer together since mother-in-law never got the daughter that she wanted either. I also felt bad hearing that, because regardless of how I feel about her as a person, I do have a heart and would never want to punch down on her if she's in the throes of PPD. Jess still hasn't admitted to snooping, so I haven't admitted to setting her up. A few comments said I should never confess, but I think I will at some point, mainly because I don't care. I am more than willing to burn a bridge while I'm still standing on it, but now simply isn't the time. So that's it. That's the lackluster update. Jess is invited to my baby shower, so I might be back in a couple of weeks depending on how that shakes out. Savvy Maverick says, well damn, that's not where I saw this going. Might not have been crazy as you say, but definitely quite the revelation. I feel for Jess to a point, but the minute she made that comment about my husband, all gloves would have been off. Your restraint is commendable. I hope she gets counseling so that little boy doesn't have to grow up knowing that his mother didn't want him. P.S. Absolutely don't listen to the person who said to go out of your way to be nice to her. This site is full of willing doormats, and I'm actually quite sick of it. OP says, I'm mostly worried about my nephew in all of this, but I really do think mother-in-law will step up and help. I don't know if I can, or what that would even look like. We've never been close before this, and likely never will. The best way for me to help is actually just to leave her be. Every mama deserves a village, and had she shown me the slightest bit of kindness in all these years, I would be a part of that. Yet here we are. Foxy sly old sturdy fox replies, she wanted to sabotage your own child's life, albeit in such a pitiful way and on such a pitiful scale, virtually from the moment of conception. And if you're too generous-spirited to concede that, then you have to agree that she wanted to steal some of your happiness to feed herself. Again, in a truly pitiable way. Giving her a wide berth is surely the best for you and your own children. Play the same role you did when she unveiled her son's name. Keep her, and sadly her family, including her son, at arm's length. And feel sorry for the kid. Yeah, I don't know why OP said that this wasn't an eventful update. If anything, it just really grounded the situation. And in a way, I can pity her, knowing that, life ain't always fair and life is a bit shit, and she had all that anxiety going on. Doesn't excuse her actions, just makes me understand a bit more why she did the messed up things that she did. I do hope that she gets the support she needs to deal with the PPD that she's experiencing, and it wouldn't surprise me if this emotional breakdown was enough to break the relationship that she and Terrence have, because that's a real tough situation to have to go through, that's for sure. Better them than me, man. I am not God's strongest soldier. I would fold under the pressure of that situation if I was Terrence. Not to say that I'd abandon my wife, absolutely not, but man, having a partner smite your in-laws like that and be in such drama with OP's mother-in-law here, my God, that's a rock and a hard place situation that he put himself in. I'm not gonna discount that. He put himself here. How do you even moderate a situation from his perspective is my question. I don't even know what he can do besides just be there to support her and kind of bring her out of the throes of craziness that she was exhibiting. Anyway, I agree with OP's actions in this situation. I still think they're not the asshole, and I think they do need to continue to keep all those people on an information diet. Because to me, it doesn't sound like Jess is done being an absolute savage. I'm manifesting an update in the future where there's a round 2 from Jess, and who knows what she's gonna do, but she's cooking something, that's for sure. Thank you for sharing your story with us, OP. That was, again, very grounded, very human story. I really enjoyed that one. What do you guys think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Anyway, guys, that's where I'm going to end today's episode. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.